Greetings, all! Today, we will be examining the exceptionally rare grass-type Pokemon Chespin, the Spiny Nut Pokémon, its equally rare evolution Quilladin, and its final, equally rare grass fire-type evolution Chesnaught, the latter two collectively known as the Spiny Armor Pokémon. Energetic in their mannerisms and more than able to take a direct hit, the members of the Chespin family are fascinating creatures that can make for great partners for those looking for solid grass types with physical resilience on their side.
Chespin have bipedal bodies with soft light brown fur on their belly, legs, and face, with two massive white claws on each of their feet and brown three-fingered hands, further featuring three triangle-shaped dark brown markings around their face that frame their black eyes, pink nose, and expressive mouth, the latter holding only a single incisor on their upper jaw. Their backs, pink-tipped tail, and head are encased in an armored green carapace of sorts, with a series of plant-like spines that jet out from the back of their head and around their head's circumference. Their evolved form, Quilladin, have much more rounded forms as a result of their chestnut shell completely encapsulating them, forming a sturdy green and brown patterned outer shell with a pair of large pink-tipped barbs that sprout from the sides of their head. Their legs and arms have turned dark brown in this state as well, with them now having three sharp claws on each of their hands, as well as a more pointed nose and a three-pronged tuft of dark brown hair on their forehead. Their final evolution, Chesnaught, have much larger, more humanoid frames, with light brown armor covering their legs and torso, and white armor covering the inside of their arms, with three dark brown clawed digits on each of their hands and feet, a much longer tail compared to their pre-evolved forms, and a thick mane of white hair that covers most of their face and drapes down to the middle of their front torso, framing their nose, dark brown face crest, and eyes. The armor that once covered them entirely now forms a pair of green semi-barbed armor plates on the sides of the arms, as well as a massive beige, thick protective shell that drapes over their shoulders with red and green edges and covers the entirety of their back, with a massive pair of spines that jut out just behind their shoulders.
The members of the Chespin family are a wonderful example of how plant and animal life can coexist with one another without the requirement of parasitism in their equation.
It is unknown exactly what species of mammal Chespin and its evolutions were before they became integrated with the plant, but the mutant variety of chestnut that now lives as an active part of the body has changed the morphology completely and created an entirely new organism in the process, which may be responsible for the skewed gender ratio of 8-to-1 in favor of males. Unlike most grass types in a similar situation, however, Chespin are rather limited in regards to effectively utilizing their grass-type powers and only managed to get two grass-type moves before evolution, the Vine Whip attack and the Leech Seed technique. The rest of their move repertoire originates from the animal side and includes powerful moves like Rollout and Bite.
Despite this lack of serious grass-type offenses at an early age, Chespin are at least able to utilize the plant portion of their body for protection, as their entire head is covered in a thick shell similar to the exterior of a walnut seed pod.
When Chespin evolve, the plant portion of the body takes over to some degree and turns what was once a simple head covering into a fully functioning suit of armor made from the same woody material seen in chestnuts. This thick armor grants these creatures a decent boost to the physical offenses, but has an even greater impact on the physical defenses, making their bodies nearly impermeable to direct attack outside of high-powered piercing strikes. Quilladin are able to withstand considerable force with their shells and are immune to most small-scale pressure waves and concussive blasts, enabling them to survive just about anything that is thrown their way. The only major exception comes to special attacks, especially in the case of extreme heat, as their shells tend to keep heat in and in turn make it very difficult for them to cool their bodies and prevent internal damage when exposed to heat constantly. If threatened in battle, Quilladin will make the most of their armor by either firing spines from their bodies in an improvised pin missile attack, or firing the unripened nuts of the mutant walnut it is a part of, which are now produced and stored within a sac near their stomach as a modified version of the seed bomb attack. When Quilladin manage to reach physical maturity, their bodies mutate and they finally gain full control over the mutant chestnut that has otherwise dominated their anatomy from birth. As Chesnaught, these beasts manage to gain full control over their physical bodies and are able to use them to deliver devastating blows in battle that they otherwise would never be able to learn naturally. The spiky, nut-like armor that once covered their entire bodies completely splits apart and hardens substantially, creating a massive shield on the backs of their body, limbs, and tail. This armor is so strong in this state that it can withstand a bomb blast from only a few feet away, something that would otherwise likely crack if not destroy the armor of its pre-evolved form. Though they normally are so deeply connected to the natural powers that they have access to Overgrow as their only base ability, in cases where their armor is extremely strong, it can cause certain types of projectile attacks to simply bounce right off of them, granting them access to Bulletproof as a hidden ability in turn. As far as the stats are concerned in the case of Chesnaught, these powerful creatures might not be very fast, but they have decent stamina to them and can show some noble power with their attacks as they take direct hits with little issue, the base special attack set being above average for a fully evolved flying type Pokemon, the base attack stat being above average for a fully evolved grass type Pokemon, and the base HP and defense stats being above average for fully evolved grass and fighting type Pokemon, making them more than tough nuts to crack in practice.
As noted before, Chespin are most well known for the shell structure that completely encloses their head and serves as a helmet of sorts, ensuring that they don't take too much damage from direct attacks to the most vulnerable part of their body.
This shell is so strong, in fact, that these small creatures can be hit full force by a moving truck and will not receive much, if any, damage to their head in the process. Sadly, this strong covering also makes the head fairly heavy, so Chespin are not the fastest of creatures. Nonetheless, the defense it offers both in nature and in battle serves as the primary reason why they're able to survive, where the grass types might be unable to cope with the stressful environment. While they do manage to gain a decent variety of attacks at a young age and are able to deal some considerable damage in battle, Chespin usually do not like to fight much and will stick to simply playing around with other Pokemon unless they are forced to defend themselves. As a defensive measure, Chespin will often use the quill-like growths of their head as a deterrent, which are actually shoots from the mutant chestnut that have been fully incorporated into their biological form. These grassy quills are usually quite soft and even feel somewhat fuzzy when touched, but if Chespin wish to, they can use a nerve trigger at the base of the quills to suddenly stiffen them, turning them into hard daggers that can cleave through even rock if slammed into a surface hard enough. Sadly, this feat requires that Chespin put the heads into a particularly vulnerable state, but it still serves as enough of a deterrent to make larger predators think twice about attacking them head-on. In the wild and by nature in general, Quilladin are much like their pre-evolved form in that they really do not like fighting a lot and prefer to just play with other Pokemon instead. In fact, Quilladin are so nonchalant they will almost never start fights on their own accord, only reacting in a violent manner if seriously threatened or attacked by another Pokemon. In order to ensure that they are at the top of their game though, these creatures will actually have shoving matches between members of the same species, running at each other at top speed to try and see who can stay upright and not be knocked over by the force of the impact. Because all members of their kind are heavily armored, these impacts inflict little if any damage to themselves, and thus can be performed numerous times in a single day, usually until either member is too exhausted to continue. Quilladin will occasionally try to do the same thing with other Pokemon if they can, but because of their body spines, this does not always go as well as expected, and more than likely can result in some serious damage if their playmate isn't as heavily armored as they are. Trainers racing these creatures must keep this in mind when training them at all times. They might not mean any harm by it, but these little critters definitely do not know their own strength and should be watched accordingly.
In battle, thanks to the heavy armor, Chespin are able to learn some unique moves that are otherwise impossible for the pre-evolved forms to learn.
In particular, their combat style revolves around the spiky shield technique they gain access to immediately after evolving, which works much like a protect technique, but deals additional damage to any opponent that attempts to strike with a move that requires physical contact while it is active. In terms of offense, these beasts are much more mobile than Quilladin, and are able to use their impressive bulk in battle for offense so well that they actually manage to acquire a partial fighting type assignment, mainly due to the expert use of the powerful hammer arm attack. In addition, Chestnut are able to use the large girth in combination with their armored hide to use moves like Feint and Giga Impact, and even have the ability to learn the belly drum technique with a bit of work. Despite all of this power, however, these beasts are still much like the pre-evolved forms in that they are gentle giants and prefer to avoid battles if at all possible, preferring to shield its front body and those of its allies with its armored arms in order to withstand attacks and maintain a defensive posture at all times. If provoked, however, these monsters will gladly ram anything in their path with a monstrous tackle attack capable of sending even 50-ton tanks flying through the air. This skill is so prolific that they are occasionally used for demolition purposes, but this practice is scarce as the species itself is among the rarest in all of the Kalos region. Trainers that manage to get their hands on one of these grassy titans will have to be careful about using their power, as Chesnaught are able to do incredible damage in battle with their hardened armor, despite the fact that it still makes their movements somewhat sluggish. These titans might not be able to put up much of a fight against special attackers, but in all other situations, caution for both trainer and opponent is still advised, just in case they miss an attack and end up in the pathway of something destructible like a tree or a human being.
Well, it goes without saying that these fellas and lasses might look cute, their thick armor can make taking them out a more difficult affair than most might initially imagine. Chespin are really easy to get along with and can be a ton of fun to play with, but their spines and armor can make this a bit trickier than you might think. They usually intend no real harm on others with their bodies, so they might have to play at a slight distance to make the most of their time with other Pokemon. Quilladin certainly do look rather goofy with the way their bodies are designed, and they can't help but remind me of eggs because of their odd rounded shape. Even so, all that armor can prove to be incredibly useful for them when it comes to reducing or outright preventing damage to their bodies, so you would be best off not underestimating just how hard they can be to crack. Chesnaught are quite the noble fighters and have a lot of great qualities to them that make them perfect for traveling companions, especially given them much of the power it can and often is restrained on their own volition when interacting with most people in Pokemon. When it comes time to fight, though, they will show little mercy to others and will unleash the raw power that armored forms wield, and in turn can prove to be quite the potent aid and sturdy beasts if you can give them a chance to make the most of the thick armor bound to them for protection.
Happy-go-lucky in their own sense, and yet more than able to take quite a beating, the members of the Chespin family are powerful creatures that can make great use of their armor to take hits and deliver them right back. They may not be the fastest of fighters because of the heavy armor, but that is something that likely won't be much of a pressing issue as long as the armor remains intact.
Just do yourself a favor and make sure that you've got some defenses of your own if you have to square up with one of these beasts. They might do their best to keep friends out of harm's way, but that doesn't mean a rogue swing or tackle from them will do much good to the state of your physical well-being afterwards.
Thank you all for watching this video. It always brings me great joy to see others enjoying the work I do to try and make the world of Pokemon and the fascinating creatures that lay inside of it feel as real as they possibly can. If you really enjoy my work, please feel free to leave a comment and subscribe, as I always do my best to respond to any and all comments that are left on my videos. In addition, if you wish to learn more about my work and help support it, you can find links to my Patreon page, as well as email and other contact information to my work on DeviantArt in the video description down below. Furthermore, you can find a link to my Discord server there as well if you'd like to get a first glimpse at what videos are coming up next and converse with other fans of the world of Pokemon. Thank you for taking the time to watch this, and have a wonderful rest of your day.